Welcome to Hit the Brakes, where we dive into the top stories, market trends, and ins and outs of the supply chain. No matter if you're tuning in from the cab of your truck, behind your desk, or on your daily commute, we're glad you're here and we're ready to serve you. Let's get this show on the road. You know, we've recently learned here the FMCSA is moving to a new online registration system called Motus. This one really caught me off guard completely. You know, this data came out, I think it was last week, I believe it was. You know, it sounds like it's really something that could have a potentially very meaningful impact potentially, and maybe even have an impact on fraud mitigation too. So, Brett, I think that, you know, the graphic we're looking at here is kind of outlining the registration process and some of the impact of some of the changes over new carrier registrations over the past, really since April, when this new when Motus went into effect. So can you want to elaborate on this one for us too?
Yeah, no, I'd love to. So just one thing, Motus, they're describing as their new one-stop shop for carriers. And again, it's kind of a long overdue revamp of the system, and it includes a lot of things around like identity verification, biometric screening, things like that. I actually watched a demo the other day that the FMCSA put out on how to navigate Motus, just to kind of see a little bit of what our carrier partners are experiencing when they do that. But I'd say the one big theme, and it kind of goes along, it's like there is change underway at the FMCSA. That's very, very clear at this point. And they are stepping up enforcement, some enforcement of things that were already perhaps in regulations, just different ways of actually weeding out non-compliance and things like that. But I just want to talk about this for a minute. So first off, I'd say by and large, more or less everybody should be cheering for this. So this is definitely a tailwind for fraud prevention, and brokers, trucking companies are victims of this. Shippers are victims of this. Kind of everybody in the supply chain. It's been a major theme. You know, basically anywhere from $500 million to $1 billion a year in cargo thefts and stuff like that. That's really just taken off over the last 4 years. This is an important step of helping weed out chameleon carriers. A lot of these fraudulent parties that pretend to be trucking companies, these cargo theft rings, things like that. Also, carriers that are turning and burning MCs, they're looking for irregularities, and then also things that are, you know, potential signs of duplication on these, like, you know, kind of copycats and things like that. This is definitely not a silver bullet, but it's definitely encouraging to see that this is a step in the right direction. I will say this one chart, what is it telling us? Particularly like this last, you know, far right side of the column where it kind of drops off a cliff. This is really showing you the throughput of the filing process for carriers who are renewing or signing up for new MC authorities with the FMCSA. And you could look at this and say, like, yay, they've look at all the fraud that they've knocked out, but I think that's a piece of it. The other piece is, you know, again, it's throughput. They're implementing more enforcement. They're more heavily scrutinizing these new authorities. So some of this is actually, you know, and even anecdotally, some good carriers are potentially waiting, and also just delays. I've heard rumors of a lot of frustration with the process from some corners of the market. So I do think that there's an element of probably just timing and delays with all of the new efforts that they're making that's leading to a throughput change here. Certainly see this as somewhat of a headwind for the capacity side of the market. I mean, you think about it, there's less MCs getting approved off of 1 month of data. This will be something really interesting to see how this plays out over the next 3 to 6 months. But I would say kind of a lot going on with the FMCSA. This is just one other example of it. Again, hopefully it's effective in weeding out the fraud and helping us combat that. That's a huge topic that I think everybody's been mindful of in our industry. Doesn't matter which side of the fence you play ball on.
No doubt. Yep. And I think, you know, one other thing, as I understand this chart, you know, this was reported by Carrier OK, which I was, you know, really proud of them for shedding some light on this. But I don't think this is I promise I probably need to go back and review and remember when we first registered our MC and how that process looked back then. But as I understand it, this is the number of carriers that have made it to that 21-day review period. So this month will be pretty critical. The data that comes out in June of how many new MCs are actually approved after this 21-day review process that we've seen a massive decline in. So it'll be really interesting. I think we've got another week or two to really start to get a sense of the impact of this. But definitely something to keep an eye on, and could really be have a really truly meaningful impact on, like you said, fraud, capacity, and a lot of different ways. But either way, I'm thankful for the new system, and hopefully it's keeping some of those bad actors out of the market. Thanks for joining us on Hit the Brakes podcast. Want to know more about today's episode? Visit fetchfreight.com to connect with someone from our team, get a quote, join our carrier network, and more. Check out the show notes below for specific links mentioned in the episode.